wanted to do another follow-up to the last video that I published about Trump's immunity and convictions. And it's more of a deep dive into why would the Supreme Court actually grant a president that amount of power? Because to me, it seems like dangerous, a danger to somebody who would be self-interested in the Supreme Court. You know, if they were a member of this, they too could likewise be assassinated by Trump. They granted him the legal argument. They granted him the defense that he could legitimately do that. So why would they grant him that kind of power? Why would the conservative majority agree with that sentiment? Two options, right, as far as I can think of. And I welcome all sorts of feedback on this because I'm not entirely sure. The first easy answer is that they're confident that they're not going to have to deal with the consequences of this kind of decision. Maybe they believe that Trump is all bark, no bite. Maybe they believe that even if he does decide to start biting, he will demonstrate his patience with them because they've demonstrated their loyalty to him. Maybe that's another option. I think maybe the Supreme Court justices have to be somewhat aware of the fact that Trump cannot be controlled. They have to be able to acknowledge that as a potential. They've watched him closely over now at least a decade of him being involved in politics. And they have to know that he's untamable. So why would they grant him that? Maybe it's because it turns them into the final arbiters of what actions are actually valid, right? Technically, the Supreme Court would still get to rule upon any action that the president takes, right? Or a judge would have to make a decision based upon any particular case, whether or not he has absolute immunity, partial immunity, or no immunity whatsoever, which then puts the onus onto Trump to have to navigate the judicial quagmire that could arise from any time that he does something that's questionable. Maybe. If it was only the Supreme Court that got to make that kind of decision, yeah. And the Supreme Court has already demonstrated its willingness to just sidestep all sorts of stuff and take upon the case, even though it's not kind of a standard process. They have become very willing to intervene in the political process, to exert their power and influence over the situation. And the reason why I'm more soft on this idea, or more agreeable to the idea that maybe the Supreme Court thinks that they can control him, is because the Supreme Court is constantly trying to leverage its power to be supreme, right? And that includes trying to get a one-up on both congressional power and executive power. And maybe the Supreme Court Justice Roberts, the head of the Supreme Court, maybe he thinks that by allowing this kind of immunity to seep through, is it ultimately gives them control of Trump's leash. Maybe. I think that's an incredibly stupid, short-sighted belief. But maybe that's the angle. I don't know. I look forward to people's thoughts and opinions on this to help understand why they may have just quite literally put a target on their back for the incoming president.